The political story unfolding in Nebraska is about much more than one state's economic struggles. It raises a larger question that is becoming increasingly important across America. What happens when political promises collide with economic reality? For years, Nebraska has been viewed as a reliable conservative stronghold, a state where Republican messaging about lower taxes, smaller government, and economic growth has consistently resonated with voters. But now, many of the same communities that embrace those ideas are confronting rising costs, budget pressures, farm uncertainty, job losses, and growing frustration about the future. What makes this situation especially fascinating is that the debate is no longer happening only between political opponents. Increasingly, it is taking place within conservative communities themselves. Voters who once felt confident about the direction of the country are beginning to ask difficult questions about whether the outcomes they expected are actually materializing. The real story is not simply about Nebraska. It is about trust, expectations, and the widening gap between political rhetoric and everyday life. And that gap may be shaping the next phase of American politics in ways many people still underestimate.
Nebraska going bankrupt. Nebraska farmers going bankrupt because of Trump's tariffs. They all love to vote for Trump out in Nebraska.
Tonight we head to the Cornhusker state of Nebraska, where rising costs are putting serious pressure on many MAGA voters and working families across the state. From gas and groceries to rent and utility bills, everyday expenses are climbing faster than many people can keep up with, and for voters who were promised economic relief and stability, the frustration is becoming harder to ignore. Stay with us until the end as we hear personal stories from Nebraskans dealing with the growing reality of America's cost of living crisis.
Do you care about Nebraska? Because I have a feeling you voted for this. I mean, Nebraskans don't even care about Nebraska. Let me ask you another question. Who exactly did you think?
One of the most striking aspects of Nebraska's current political debate is the collision between long-term political loyalty and short-term economic pain. Historically, voters often tolerate economic hardship when they believe better days are ahead. What becomes politically dangerous is when people begin questioning whether the sacrifices are leading anywhere at all. Across several issues, a common theme emerges: voters are increasingly focused on practical outcomes rather than ideological arguments. Rising utility bills, expensive groceries, higher fuel costs, and concerns about employment opportunities create pressures that cannot easily be explained away through partisan talking points. When families feel financially squeezed month after month, they start evaluating leaders based on results rather than slogans. Another important dynamic involves competing explanations for economic hardship. Some political figures point to global events, energy markets, international conflicts, or inflationary pressures. Others blame state-level decisions, tax policies, corporate incentives, or government spending priorities. Still others argue that corporate consolidation has weakened local economies and reduced competition. The political challenge is that voters are hearing all of these explanations simultaneously. As a result, many people are becoming skeptical of simple answers. They see economic problems that appear larger and more complex than any single politician or party is willing to admit. Nebraska also illustrates a growing debate about economic development itself. Supporters of major corporate investments argue that attracting large projects creates growth, increases tax revenue, and modernizes local economies. Critics counter that incentives often benefit corporations more than communities, while producing fewer long-term jobs than promised. This disagreement reflects a broader national conversation about whether economic growth is actually reaching ordinary workers. At the same time, rural communities face unique vulnerabilities. Agricultural markets remain highly sensitive to trade disputes, international demand, input costs, and energy prices. Manufacturing closures can have an outsized impact because a single employer may support an entire local economy. When one major facility shuts down, the effects spread far beyond the workers directly affected. Perhaps most importantly, the discussion reveals a growing frustration with institutions themselves. Many voters no longer express disappointment with a single elected official. Instead, they increasingly question whether political systems, economic systems, and even traditional party structures are capable of solving the problems they face. That represents a deeper and potentially more significant political development than any individual policy dispute. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, Nebraska becomes a case study in something happening across America. The real issue is not whether voters are becoming more liberal or more conservative. It's whether they still believe the political system can improve their lives. For years, voters were promised economic growth, lower costs, and greater opportunity. But when daily expenses keep rising and communities continue struggling, people start asking harder questions. They become less focused on ideology and more focused on results. That's what makes Nebraska's situation so important. Many voters are judging the economy not by political speeches or economic reports, but by what they see every day: grocery bills, utility costs, gas prices, and job opportunities. This creates challenges for both parties. Republicans cannot assume loyalty will remain unchanged if economic pressures continue, and Democrats cannot assume frustration automatically benefits them. More voters are questioning everyone. Ultimately, Nebraska reflects a broader national mood. Across the country, people want a future that feels more secure than the present. The leaders who succeed will likely be those who can deliver tangible results rather than simply make promises. Because when voters begin losing faith that things are getting better, political change often follows. If you enjoyed this analysis, be sure to subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.